You're listening to the Best Company Show, Southern California's business podcast, focusing on topics of interest to CEOs and managers of middle market companies, with your host, Robert J. Curtis.
And welcome again to the Best Companies radio show. This is Robert J. Curtis, your host, and this is podcast episode number 10. We have a great show for you today. I'm excited to have a special guest, John McHugh from Versatile Systems as my guest today. Now, let me talk a little bit about Versatile Systems. If there's any company that requires 100% focus to details, it's got to be the safety business. And that's what business John is in. And he's the founder, as a founder and CEO of Versatile Systems. He is, now I'm going to try to get my description right here. Design, build, fall protection company.
That's correct.
Okay. So you're the guys who keep people from getting hurt.
That's what we do.
Everywhere. And that's
getting hurt from falling.
Getting hurt from falling specifically, which is really interesting because a myriad of questions and topics that come up. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about the people management issues that revolve around this. And not only being in the business, but dealing with the situations you deal with, the companies you deal with, the projects you're on, and how you do it. I don't know how you do it, and I think I'm glad you're there. I think everybody's glad you're there, and I'm glad you do what you do. So why don't we start out with that? Why don't you give us a little background about Versatile Systems, right?
That's correct.
And what you do and how you do it.
So it started out about 10 years ago. I had two business partners that essentially they were in the business of selling safety products for keeping people safe at heights. But they didn't have the installation arm or the engineering arm. There's a lot of engineering involved and training. So we decided to come together. I had some construction background in running a construction company. Okay. We decided to create a company that was fully turnkey, able to provide engineering, installation, provide the product, provide training, provide follow-up inspections, and give them a full turnkey solution for finding ways to protect their employees at heights. Right. So that's the way the company kind of started in a really quick, long, story. And then since then, my wife Tara and I have bought their shares of the company. They're looking more towards retirement and heading into their more relaxing point of their life. And Tara and I are going to move forward on our own. So it's been about 2.5 years now since Tara and I have owned the company outright ourselves.
Great. Okay, so now let's talk about what do you mean when you say we do fall protection and we do safety systems? Give me an idea of how it works. These are not temporary installations. These are permanent things, right?
We do a little bit of temporary stuff.
Okay.
If we have a client that maybe they know there's an exposure, meaning that they have employees that are exposed to a fall hazard. OSHA has very clear guidelines on when that occurs. When okay. I'm within 6 feet of a roof edge and I have work to do there, but let's say there's no guardrails and there's nothing to prevent me from falling off the roof. We'll come up with a compliant solution for them to have the ability to work at the edge of the roof without the risk of being killed, falling off the building.
But then it goes into permanent installations that you do,
as
right?
well, yeah.
Let's talk about it. I mean, give me some examples.
An example could be like we have clients, a lot of transit companies that we work with, where they have air conditioning units on the top of their buses, or they have the new propane systems. They have to do some work on top of the buses with the new propane system, so they're constantly having to be up on top of that bus. The bus is 12 to 13 feet in the air. They have to protect the employee from falling off of the top of that bus.
Right.
So it's just stuff like that where there's an employee that's put at a risk, and we're left with figuring out how can we keep them safe and compliant and able to do their job without handcuffing them as well. So part of our solution can't create another problem. And that's a lot of the challenge as well.
Right, and it also has to, it can't create, in other words, it can't get in the way of the job, it can't make things more dangerous because the safety equipment is burdensome or a problem, right? But then also, you're talking about installing things that are permanent and are going to last a long time, right?
They're there, hopefully they're there for the life of the building that we've put them in, and that's our goal.
That could be 30 years, 50 years, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
And at that point, you're off-site but you've left your mark.
Yes, that's what keeps us up at night, by the way. Yeah.
And so you really have to think ahead, and you have to be really cautious and plan ahead and do the best you can, given the circumstances, anticipate as much as you can. It must be a tough job.
It's really tough, and personally, I can't be there to see all these installations. I can't be there to see that every nut and bolt has been torqued down and tightened the way it's supposed to, and everything's been put in place correctly. I can't be there to see that later after we've left, let's say, a fall arrest system where it's going to stop a person from falling. I can't be there to see if a trained person's using it, if they're using it with the right equipment. So we leave. There's a lot left to the end user, and we're hoping, or we're relying on them, I should say, to do that stuff correctly.
But getting it set up and getting it put in the best way possible requires you and your team of people. I think you're over 20 people now, and you're growing.
That's correct.
Rapidly, from what I understand. And so you're working with your team on those kind of issues, on how to get it done, how to get it installed, and how to set it up for the future, for the life of the project, whatever it might be, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, let's dig into that. I want to dig into that in a minute, because that presents special issues that our guests, and I in particular, are not familiar with, and I really want to find out and learn more about it. So let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor is Alpha Quantix. That's my company. We specialize in engagement culture, analytics, metrics, behaviorals, and all of those functions about building good teams and being good leaders and managing your people better. So we'll have a quick word from my company, and we'll be right back.
Robert J. Curtis is the founder and CEO of Alpha Quantix, a premier provider of employee analytics and metrics that helps CEOs and managers of middle market companies hire the best, manage the best, and be the best. Robert is a keynote speaker, presenter, moderator, and panel member who regularly appears at conferences, business events, and association meetings nationwide. His presentations provide powerful information that gives CEOs and managers of middle market companies valuable insights to improve their hiring and engagement skills. If you'd like Robert to make a personal appearance, he can be contacted by visiting his show's website, bestcompanyshow.com, or by emailing Robert at info@bestcompanyshow.com.
Imagine what it would feel like to lose everything: your job, your home, your family, your dignity. This has happened to thousands of the men, women, veterans, and young adults we serve at Working Wardrobes. What do we do to help? We provide career development services, life skills workshops, job skills training. We provide the perfect interview outfit, and we get clients placed in jobs. Call Working Wardrobes, 714-210-2460. Donate, volunteer, invest, hire.
Imagine buying a newspaper and discovering that the news you're reading is 6 months old. There isn't much that stays the same for 6 months, and the same thing goes for background checks. In a time when so much outdated information is being passed around, it's good to know that People G2 offers something different. At People G2, we provide today's intelligence, not yesterday's news. Our value-added approach offers you a fully FCRA-compliant solution that includes up-to-the-minute information. By combining industry-leading technology with old-school human investigation, People G2 is able to give you information that is accurate right now, delivered quickly through our online system, or integrated with your HR system. So ask yourself, are you comfortable working with old news, or are you ready for a different kind of background check company? Visit peopleg2.com or call 800-630-2880. That's 800-630-2880 or peopleg2.com.
All right, back to Robert and his guest.
And welcome back to the Best Company Show. I have with me today John McHugh from Versatile Systems, and they are a specialist and one of the leading companies, I guess, here, a fast-growing company in height fall safety installations in the Southern California area. And they do projects around, all around Southern California. And John has mentioned in the past things like dealing with everything from transportation installations to large projects. I think you've mentioned, can I mention some names like
Sure, yeah.
Staples Centers? Is that
Yep,
something you're
yeah.
involved with? And some of these other ones where you're doing, I mean, the Staples Center is a pretty tall building, right?
What we do at like what we've done at the Staples Center, even working in conjunction with a few other rigging companies, is install lifelines. Basically, essentially a cable that goes along the top of their trusses, where rigging guys would go and hang banners or hang speaker arrays or lighting fixtures, and they would hang them off of the steel structure that is essentially on the ceiling above the basketball court. So things like that, and we have all kinds of stuff like that. And
Okay, so good. So let's dig into that. As an owner and a manager of a business where you're involved with these safety issues, it's a very special business because you have to pay attention, I suppose, to details. But not only you have to pay attention to details, everybody in the organization has to, right?
yeah.
So can you give me an idea of what your crew looks like? I mean, who are the people that you're hiring? What do they do? And what are the issues that they face every day?
It's really tricky because we're not only are we trying to provide a safety solution for our clients when we're putting in this equipment, but we have to go up there and put something in temporarily and keep our people safe while we're trying to put in the safety equipment that someone's going to use later down the road. So it creates a massive challenge for us to not only find someone that will put the equipment in to spec to the engineering documents that we have, but also do it safely. And because God forbid something happens, we're not going to be in business very long, and that's really been the biggest challenge. And not only just doing the job correctly, but doing the job safely, and not, we're putting people at risk on a daily basis. And
yeah, if you think about it, okay, first off, if my understanding is correctly, your people are essentially classified like iron workers because they're up there with the iron workers, right?
That's the class code that we use for our workers' comp, yes.
Okay, and some of the things they're doing are essentially as dangerous or even more dangerous because they're the first guys up, right?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, it
for
depends
sure.
on the circumstances. But if you imagine the guy who has to put up the safety rigging is up in a situation where there isn't safety rigging there before they put it up.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to do this, so that's one of the challenges you deal with. A couple of the challenges: your own safety for your own workers, but also creating a safe environment and installing things correctly and doing a good job for the other people, the companies or the installations you're dealing with. How about other issues that you deal with, just say from a management standpoint? You're hiring people that are going to be doing these kind of functions. They have to know and understand that that's what they're doing, right? It's the nature of the company. It's the nature of their job. Do you have ongoing training on work training or things that you do to help them understand how to do it better?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of training that goes into place. We have them go through extensive fall protection training, extensive training on the products that we install. But that's kind of the main thing when we're hiring people is, and my wife Tara kind of came up with 3 questions we have to ask when we're hiring people. The first one is, can they do the job? Can they do the job long term? But most importantly, do they fit our company culture? And the reason that's so important is, will they be able to grasp what we're trying to achieve as a company? Will they be, not just are they fun to hang out with or are they good people? It's more of, will they take what we're trying to do seriously? Will they apply the care that we all have? Not just for finishing the day off and going home, but doing the job. Understanding that someone's life is on the line after they leave.
Right.
That we're installing things that are meant to keep people alive, and actually taking that to heart and putting their heart and soul into that. And we've been so fortunate that we've been able to, using those 3 questions in really hiring for company culture over maybe, we've had great rigging guys who know everything, and but don't necessarily fit the culture. They want to do their quick little job and run home at the end of the day and don't really care, what happens afterwards. And those guys, they have all the skill in the world, but they're not a good fit for us.
Let's dig into that a little bit more. What I'd like to do is find out because you're talking about culture, company culture, and I want to dig into that. But before we get there, how about the issue of knowing up front about the people that you're interviewing, and also when you start working with them in the first, say, 90 days, when they're in their initial training period or whatever it might be. How do you what are the criteria? What are the issues that you're looking at that distinguish the people who are going to do well versus the people who aren't? Are there things that you look for?
Yeah, I think there's some really telling signs. You know, you can kind of hear. We ask a lot of a lot of questions like, what do you see for your future? What when I use one of our favorite employees, Jessica, for example. She's kind of runs the office for us. When she came in, we had some issues with our phones during that time, and during the interview, she's like, well, what's wrong with the phones? How can I help with the phones? There was just a little bit something in her that was different than the rest. Like, what can I do to help? She didn't even work there yet.
So you're looking for contributors, maybe?
Contributors, someone who maybe, like I said, it's just someone that's not just looking for a paycheck. It's someone that wants to grow with us. Not just grow with us financially, grow with us as human beings. And grow with us as a family. And you can see those signs really fast. And are they smart enough? Like, can they do the job? Can we train them to do the job? And there's a lot of times where the answer is no. And we've given it a shot, and we'll know right away. If we made a bad decision, we're really quick about changing it. There's too much on the line not to.
Okay, so is that? But you seem to have been able to deal with that pretty well. But is it still an issue? Is it always something that you need to deal with?
It's always an issue. I mean, we have to monitor each other, and we have employees that we know are phenomenal human beings, and we all kind of get into a rut sometimes, and we bring them and we call them to the carpet, so to speak, and not just about their work performance, but about the care that they're putting into their work, and we want you back. We want you to come back to where you were, and sometimes those conversations have to happen.
That's an interesting thought. And so one question I have, actually it's not really a question. I assume that you have people going through and double checking the work that's been done, right? So so you have the installers, you have the foreman or whoever that come around and are looking at it, quality construction inspector, control, whatever. In that scenario, when you're getting feedback that, hey, things aren't, we're having to readjust things, we're having to fix things. How do you then bring that to the employee's attention? Is there a way that you can bring that to without being confrontational, maybe, and keep that culture going?
Sure. And these things do happen. We've had some of those hiccups, and unfortunately, I wish I could say that we were perfect, but we're not. We really. We try. I mean, we give it everything we have. So when things do happen, typically there's a conversation that's had with whoever is responsible. And honestly, I take full responsibility for all of those things. That buck stops here, and maybe I should have done more as the owner and the leader of the organization. So when I bring them in, I say, hey, starting from me, I wish I would have done this and this and this, and then I wish you would have done this and this and this, and here's what it cost the company. We love you as a person. We're not telling you this is the end of our relationship, but we can't let this happen again. And here's why. And from a more of a humanitarian standpoint, rather than coming down on them like I'm a Gestapo, or it's just it's like that. And if there's something where we see negligence, where there's negligence and there's really no remorse. It's just like, well, whatever. I mean, we'll end a relationship at that point. You'll
see that there's not that attention and the care that you're looking for, right? So the culture of your organization is key. And if I get it correctly, the culture is more about kind of about teamwork, but at the same time about everybody being a contributor and going the extra mile for the team, right?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. Now, every company that I've come across has, and sometimes it's hard to dig in and figure this out with some companies, but every company I've come across has at least one or two or three unique things that they do that other people aren't doing. And I love to bring those out if I can in the guests. And what I'm wondering is if you have, and can clue me into, things that you do to kind of foster that culture, to reward safety, to reward the conscientious and contribution to the organization. Do you have anything like that?
Sure. One thing that we do, our insurance company, our workers' comp insurance company, we're extremely happy with. I don't know if I should mention their name or not.
You can mention it if you want. You don't need to.
Okay. So what they do is if the company is able to go for their their calendar year, their fiscal year, they're able to show no losses. We have no claims. They will actually give us back a big chunk of money, and usually it's a substantial amount. We're paying, like I said, we pay iron worker cost codes, which are typically, it could be $40 to $50 per $100 that we pay our employees. So there's a lot of money that's out there. So when you have a great year with very few or no claims, they'll actually write us back a check for, like I said, a substantial amount of money. We take that check and we can't legally call it a safety bonus because we're not out to try to, entice our client or our employees not to file claims. We're out to try to promote safety and try to give and reward them for actually going the extra mile, not just to be safe themselves, but also to keep an eye on their neighbor, keep an eye on the guy they're working with, and make sure he's being safe too, because it could cost them a little bit of money if he's not. And it works out really well. We give the majority of that money back to our employees. It usually works out to, for the employees that have been with us for the full year, it works out to about a little over a week's worth of their salary. So it's for them, it's a great little bump. We usually do it right at Christmas time. That's when the bonus comes back to us, and we divvy all that cash back out to our people, and it's very well received. They understand that where that money comes from and why. And we've been, knock on wood, we've been very, very fortunate to run a very safe company, and it's not that we're not making claims because we're hiding them. They're running very safe. We patrol each other. Making sure each other are, we're wearing safety glasses, we're wearing the fall protection correctly, we're keeping up after each other, and it's an awesome thing.
That's neat. I love that. And I love the fact that you're actually involving them in the actual, the tangible reward for that. It's not just kind of this safety first vague concept or a sign on the wall that says, number of days without an injury kind of thing. That as much as that might seem or appear to be something useful, the real reward is when an employee comes back and says, hey, I got a bigger bonus because the company was able to be really safe, and I got a piece of that.
Sure.
Which is great. And people, I think, appreciate that. They really understand that it's an actual reward for them versus just kind of a tangible, intangible concept, right?
Yeah. The safety first concept, and we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, and going through all these safety paperwork and doing all these things that you do just with a numbness about you. Safety is a responsibility of the individual. It's not my responsibility for you to behave safely. It's my responsibility to give you the resources so you can behave safely. I'm not there with you. I'm not going to be there watching you climb a ladder and go up there. I'm in the office. They're out there. They're responsible for themselves. They have to be the ones that understand that, their life is far more important than anything that we are doing. And I have relayed that to them over and over and over again, that there is not one single thing that we do as a company that's more important than your safety. So in that regard, safety is the most important thing to me, but it's not safety first. They need to understand that they need to apply.
It's safety culture. It's not just safety.
For sure.
It's not just
for
talk,
sure. They understand that if it takes an extra hour, and I've said it over and over again, if it takes an extra hour, it's my fault. I didn't allow you enough time. It's not your fault, and I never ever want anything. No shortcuts. We'll pay you for the time, and they understand that. And usually, knock on wood, like I say, we run very safely. We get a lot of compliments on the way that we behave as a contractor when we're on a job site.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back in a minute with what I call my hot seat question. I want to bring in some current events to talk about with what. And since you're a safety guy, let's talk about safety.
Sure.
But before we do that, I want to let the audience and listeners know that you should be able to check both of us out. Find out how to reach us. And so first off, the way to reach Best Company Show is at bestcompanyshow.com. We have information about upcoming speakers, speaking engagements, upcoming shows. We have rebroadcasts of the podcast episodes, as well as a video on YouTube's. And you can also reach me personally, Robert Curtis, through LinkedIn is probably the best way. Robert J. Curtis at LinkedIn. I'd be glad to start a conversation with you. Be glad to see where it can lead. We're always looking for new guests and interesting topics to talk about, and we're also looking for your feedback. As far as John here, John, how can people reach out to you?
So you can find us on our website. We're www.versatileFallProtection.com, or you can use the shorter version, just verfallpro.com. We're local, 818-565-5551 is our number.
Awesome, great. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and I'm going to throw a hot seat question at you.
Right.
I hope you can handle it.
I hope I can.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Robert J. Curtis is the founder and CEO of Alpha Quantix, a premier provider of employee analytics and metrics that helps CEOs and managers of middle market companies hire the best, manage the best, and be the best. Robert is a keynote speaker, presenter, moderator, and panel member who regularly appears at conferences, business events, and association meetings nationwide. His presentations provide powerful information that give CEOs and managers of middle market companies valuable insights to improve their hiring and engagement skills. If you'd like Robert to make a personal appearance, he can be contacted by visiting his show's website, bestcompanyshow.com, or by emailing Robert at info@bestcompanyshow.com.
And welcome back to thebestcompanyshow.com. I'm your host, Robert J. Curtis, and we're here with John McHugh of Versatile Systems, safety contractor, safety installations company, and we're going to throw the hot seat question at you.
All
okay,
right.
so here's what's been in the news lately, and it's hard not to see these things come up because they do get a lot of media attention when they happen. And they're tough topics to talk about sometimes, right? So I'm going to throw these at you. There's a couple of companies in particular, tech leaders, billion-dollar companies, that attract a lot of media and a lot of attention because they are stellar performers. They are top-notch. They have technology. They push limits of technology. They push limits of productivity. And unfortunately, sometimes they reach their limits, and they're testing the limits maybe. Those two companies I'm thinking of right now ended up on the Dirty Dozen list for the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health just recently in this last year, and as considered not the safest places to work in the country, and that's Amazon and Tesla. Now everybody knows Amazon pushes a limit. They use a lot of technology. They push their people to maximum. They are a very great company. They deliver results. Same thing with Tesla. They're a great company. They're growing rapidly. But they push the limits of productivity. They push the limits of human-machine interface with their robotics and everything. Same thing like Amazon. But these two end up on the Dirty Dozen list. What's your take on this? Are there angles that these companies and other companies can do, or things that they can do, that will keep them off the Dirty Dozen list, that will help them be better companies and better at their safety issues?
You know, it seems to me, I know what we do well. And can we do this well with 100,000 employees? I don't know, but I don't understand why we couldn't. I don't understand why company culture, why a safety culture can't be adopted by larger organizations where I think the profit, turning these profits and forcing people, to just go too far, where safety is definitely not, I won't say safety first, safety is definitely not the most important thing. The profit margin may be the most important thing,
or the productivity.
And productivity is the most important thing, and it's tough. We work with very similar organizations as this at times, where maybe the question comes to me like, I'll come up with a solution, and they'll say to me, "We want whatever's going to get us compliant." The
bare minimum.
The bare minimum. Whatever is going to get OSHA off our back. Whatever, if OSHA comes walking in, they're going to see what we have in place and not fine us. And to me, that's not the question. The question should be, what can we do to ensure that our employees are protected from being hurt? Their employees are able to go home at the end of the day without an injury, and not necessarily what's the bare minimum that we need to do to make sure OSHA doesn't fine us.
But okay, now my guess is that neither one of these companies is asking for the bare minimum. I think they're probably pushing hard on the same issue, on the safety issue. But they're also, and maybe, pushing harder on the issues of productivity, right? They use a lot of robotics. They use a lot of technology. And people are interfacing with a lot of it's new. And a lot of it's being, the dial's way up there at number 11, right? What, there's an inherent contradiction in that, I think, or is there? Maybe if the culture's right, there isn't a contradiction.
I don't believe there is a I don't believe that they are doing everything. I don't believe that. I know with experience of one of those companies that it is not the priority. It is not even close to being the priority. It was more of how much is this going to cost? How much is it going to impact my productivity? And then what can we do instead that's not going to impact productivity and that's going to be far less expensive?
So your take on it is they need to raise the bar on and make it part of the company culture that makes safety first, but beyond safety first, so safety culture part of the company. And there are specific things that you can recommend that they would do. For example,
You know, I think the thought and what comes to my mind is you know, we all like to say as owners of a company that our employees are our biggest asset. You know, we've all heard that, and they're not an asset. You know, we're not assets of a company. I don't own you. You're not a truck. I don't have your title in my briefcase. You know, we're all at a common goal. We're all human beings that we're trying to achieve a common goal of just happiness, you know, and to make them happy employees to where they're happy to come and produce for you and be safe and know you care about them, and they'll give 100% then. You know, I think they'll understand that, hey, this guy cares about me, these people, this organization cares about me, they want me to go home, have a beautiful family, have a house, and, you know, have a nice life and be happy while I'm working.
So maybe it's a question of finding a better balance.
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
That's great advice. That's awesome advice, and it's well thought out from a guy who focuses on safety for his whole life and his whole career at this point. And it's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much, John, for being on the show.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you being here. You've been a wonderful guest. I like hearing what you have to say, and I want to hear more. So I'll definitely be inviting you back one of these days, and we'll be going further with this, taking it to the next level. Okay, thank you so much. I want to thank also Paul Roberts, my engineer, for his wonderful execution on helping the show get on the air and run every week. Also, Roland Canamar of Silver Dream Factory, who is a producer of the show. Without him, we wouldn't be here. He's a major contributor and definitely helps out in a lot of ways, including when we're on the road. And we're going to have a couple of on-the-road episodes coming up here soon, which you'll be able to see and hear, which will be great. And I want to wish everybody, all of our viewers and audience, the best with their companies, and that hopefully in the future they will end up being one of the best companies too. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to The Best Company Show, Southern California's business podcast, focusing on topics of interest to CEOs and managers of middle market companies, with your host, Robert J. Curtis.
When you use the Premier Rewards Gold Card from American Express, the rewards points can keep on multiplying. Buy 3 with triple points on airfare. Buy 2 with double points on gas and groceries. And a single point for pretty much every other dollar you spend on the card. Then, start choosing from over 1 million rewards to redeem all those points. Apply today and the annual fee for the first year is on us. Call 1-800-AXP-GOLD or visit axpgold.com. The annual fee for the card is $175. See terms, conditions, and restrictions at axpgold.com.